All right, so I'm all set up. I always like to start my session so I can make sure I'm tailoring them and answering everybody's specific questions of why they've actually shown up to the session. So obviously we're going to be talking about collections for buyers. I spoke about collections for sellers yesterday, I believe, which was for actually putting in your comps into a collection and using that as your CMA. So I did walk through a little bit during that session about how to set up a collection. Today, we're going to kind of pivot and do that just for a buyer. But I'll kind of walk you through my process for that as well, what kind of comments I leave, and then obviously the technical parts of that of actually setting up a collection. Before I go into it, what questions does everybody have, or what are you hoping to get out of today that I can make sure I maybe go more in depth on? Not all at once. I know
Hey,
it's,
I've got a question.
yeah.
Ryan Blauser in Dallas. How are
Hey,
you?
good.
Hey, I know I've asked you this before, but I want to know what you're seeing on your end. Obviously, it's self-explanatory, the benefits of the Compass collection because of the interaction within our platform and all the other unintended benefits because
Mhm.
it keeps track of the emails and their viewings and all that. Selfishly on the agent side, if you have video, Matterport, documents in the transaction in the MLS listing for buyers that are maybe important to know whether or not to give them to a client. I don't know what everybody else experiences throughout the country. Does it creates a lot more work for us agents because the collections do not offer the ability to get the transaction documents that may be pertinent to a decision to even show the property in a collection.
Okay,
And also it doesn't give them all the money that we're spending marketing on videos, Matterport, all those things don't show up in collections. So how would you
I get
balance
it.
that as the agent?
Okay. So, so more so saying like, so that the buyer can get the full experience of having everything that's available to them, maybe on the MLS. What is, I guess my question back to you is, what is the consumer experience like on the MLS? Because if you think about it, where are most of the clients going? Are they going into a Zillow or a realtor.com or any of these other like syndication websites where they also don't maybe give access to all those additional docs or additional anything? Is it your experience that you get to see everything or we get to see everything as agents in the MLS? Or do you think that the consumer actually gets to see that wherever else they're looking? Like when you send them a listing on the MLS, does it automatically give them access to all of that?
Yes.
It does. Okay. So I think, it's a specific situation. I think overall, I would still be using collections just because it's kind of a one-stop shop for me. But by no means is there a day where I'm not on the MLS. So it's not like I've completely pivoted to relying or being solely reliant on Compass. There's always going to be things that the MLS can give us that are more data-driven. That's just, I mean, that's like our dashboard. That's our hub for everything. And it's going to go back very far and whatnot. So I think you kind of have to balance it out, and think maybe what are you hoping for out of your collection experience for your clients? For me, it's just being able to kind of collaborate and talk about the listings. If there's one specifically or three specifically that they're like, this is, this is going to be the house, or I'm super interested. Even if I was sending it to them on the MLS, I'm probably setting up a separate folder for them anyway, or a separate email that has all this stuff linked anyway, where we're taking it out of we're taking that conversation about that house, so to speak, out of the collection and to somewhere else. So it kind of gives it that enough space in an email or whatever form of communication you're doing to include all those other things that maybe they don't have access to on the collection, if that makes any sense.
No, thank you so much. I
Okay.
appreciate the perspective and kind of to your point, we all know it's not all be all yet, but
Yeah.
um, I absolutely appreciate your perspective on how to approach that.
Yeah, really, it's like I would think of like your like collection, at least the way I do, as like that middleman of the timeline of the transaction. Like, okay, let's use that to make our tours and to get you familiar with the market and for us to be, if we have like, if we're think of like right at the beginning of the client experience, when you're sending 30 or 40 houses in that collection, trying to get an idea of what they like, it's an easier way to do it. Once you start to go on your second, third, fourth date with the client, maybe you're taking those conversations out of the collections and building on specific properties or specific neighborhoods. All right. Anybody else? It's a great question. Or comment or something they struggle with a collection. If everybody was perfect on collections, I doubt you'd be spending a half an hour with me here.
I'm just here to like learn more. I'm okay with collections, I think, for the most part. But
Mhm.
you know, if there was anything else that I could learn or that could help me better navigate it and help my buyers out, that's what I'm here for.
Great. Okay, so looking for a little nugget from today. That's great. All right, final call, and then I'll jump into it, and you guys can stop me as I go. Yes, Sally.
I came in a little bit late, so
Oh, good.
I would love some more ideas on how to use collections for marketing and in other ways for like I will put collections, I'll make a collection for open houses and I put on my story with a link. Like how
Mhm.
can we use collections to funnel people more to us
Okay, so maybe more
in different
public
ways? Does that make
collections?
sense?
Yeah. Maybe that's more of a public
Yeah,
collection.
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah, or collections that maybe go on marketing materials, QR codes or something.
all a public
If
collection.
that's-
Yeah. So with the private collections, you really have to add somebody in as like a collaborator in there. I think that's a really interesting topic, and I might make a whole separate session on that. And let me kind of brainstorm on maybe best practices, test it out a few different ways for the public collections, and I'll make sure that that gets on the schedule. Great.
Are the public collections static?
Yeah.
Are
What
the
was-
public collections static? Do you need to update them, or do you have to update them like manually?
The public collections?
Yes.
You have to update them manually. There's not a safe search embedded in them. So
Yeah.
that would be, but maybe if it's something that, just speaking out loud here, because I don't need, full 20 minutes for buyer collections after this. Maybe that's something that you kind of make as like a best practice before you have an open house going up that weekend. Maybe you're making it a point to refresh that neighborhood collection or, that neighborhood public collection, redo the QR code. Okay, you have to print another sheet, who cares? And then that becomes part of your process to make sure that people are constantly looking at that, or you just make it as a reminder for yourself. Okay, let me make sure that I'm updating my under 1 million first-time home buyer collection every Monday of every week so that people who did scan that one and get into it, you know that you're keeping it consistent.
Thank you.
All right, cool.
And
Okay.
for the I'm
Yep.
sorry.
No,
and
no, it's
for
good.
the private collections that you have like for each specific buyer, that doesn't have to get manually updated. It just updates automatically.
Not if you do it the way I'm going to show you. So this could be a good nugget for you if you do, if yours are not already consistent or are not, basically I call them active collections versus like stagnant collections. Then they'll consistently be feeding it in. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, great. Everybody can see this? All good? Okay. I'm seeing my hair now. I'm like, this is what running through a rainstorm twice today looks like. Okay, so when you come to here, you're going to go to search. This is just Compass Home. This is how I start my collections as opposed to going into Workspace. Let me move you guys over. And then going into collections and pressing create. That sounds completely backwards. If you go into Workspace and you click on collections and you create something you create a collection out of it from this spot, it's going to be a stagnant collection. There will be no search embedded in your collection. So doing it this way is the exact same as what we were just talking about, doing it with a public collection, whereas it's only as good as February 28th. It's not going to continue to populate. So what I do is I go to search. I have this set up as to reflect my MLS versus the Compass tools. So this all mimics what my personal MLS looks like. If yours doesn't look like that, you can go into preferences in the top right corner and you'll just toggle, so let's say it was on Compass filters. I'm going to just move you over. You guys don't know when I'm moving you over. I'm just moving on my screen. So this is what the Compass one looks like. I always switch it from this to HCAR is my MLS, I switch it to the HCAR view. Just because, again, for what we were just talking about before, I use the MLS very often. My hand already kind of moves over that. I think it's a lot easier if your region offers this, which I think every region does, to use it from your MLS. So it's something you're already familiar with, if this is already kind of a new thing that you're doing. So from here, you would basically just go in and type in the criteria for your buyer. I'm going to take it a step further. I know this is just supposed to be tech training, but I also feel like people sometimes like to know my process of working with buyers too, and when I'm actually sending the collection. Before I do a collection, I've already had an introductory call with my client. After that call, they've went in and they filled out my buyer questionnaire. After the questionnaire, they had like an hour-long conversation with me, which is what I use to then create their collection. So this is not just like I met somebody random and now I'm creating a collection. I really like it to be something where I've had the opportunity to kind of develop a rapport with the client and make sure I really learn about what they want, so that when they get this collection, they're getting a sense of, wow, Kate really knows, she's spot on. This is exactly what I want, instead of having 50 things populate for them that are really not what they are looking for. So once you've done whatever process it is that you do with your buyers, and I can, again, have another call on that specifically if that's interesting, you're here. So I'm just going to say, let's say buyer wants, their budget is 1.1. They need a minimum of 4 bedrooms, minimum of 2 full baths, say 2,000 plus square feet. I am in the suburbs of New York City in Westchester, so schools are typically pretty important for people. So we can just go through and click on a few different ones. Again, I've already had this conversation with them, of course. So let's say they wanted, I'll add in a few more. That's not good examples for that price point. Do this, sure, why not? Okay, so now you'll see that you have 7 results down here. You'll usually have a pretty good idea if you filled something out incorrectly, because if it says like 0 results or if it says 150 results, maybe you can look for a spot to kind of trim that down. From here, now that I have everything ready to go, this is the difference. If you were making your collections in Workspace before, this is now where you're going to be making your collection. So you're going to press Save Search. You're basically saving your search as a collection. It's really backwards, but it makes sense once you get used to it. Now you can go in and put the client in there. I'm going to use my business partner, my mom, as an example. I would probably narrow this down and do Northern Westchester home search, and it doesn't need to be Corinne Novak's, just be like Corinne's. Next biggest thing here, and I'm very adamant, if you guys were on my CMA call yesterday, you know this, switch your alert schedules to review and handpick, so that instead of automatically sharing. Basically, what automatically sharing is that anything that is remotely similar or matching your criteria is going to automatically go in and populate for your clients. Even if there's a specific thing, like we don't have a criteria for main road. If I had a client who said any house on a main road is an absolute non-starter for me, and this went through and pushed them through, and then they get the email saying Kate Bauer added a new home to your collection, I don't think it sounds to the client, even though I know the back end, I'm like, oh, it was just, there's no criteria for that. They don't understand that. So I like to make sure that anything that's getting sent to the client, I've reviewed even further than just what the criteria of the MLS says. So always do review and handpick. With that being said, that does add a little bit of extra work. These are not just like a start and go, start and never think about the collection again. Which I personally don't think that, like, just because you can use a collection that way, I don't think that's the best practice for it. When you're creating these collections, these are still things that you should be going into every single day. I have a time block in my calendar where I go through all my collections for the day, all of my collections for my buyers. And I make sure some days there's something to add, some days there's not, some days there's something that closed, some days there's not. But I do want to make sure that I'm staying really, really active in that. And the Compass app helps a lot for that because I get notifications in my Compass apps when something new came on. So that's where I go through and I'll push it through, and you'll see what I mean when I make this new one. Here, you can change up the alert schedule for your clients. So if you don't want them getting something immediately, you can make it something that's daily. I would probably not recommend having them get weekly notifications unless it's somebody who maybe is like a more long-term buyer. You can have that conversation with them. And I would ask them this question, you know, how often do you want to be communicated with? And then I would do that. The difference here between listing updates and collection activity, change these to make sure that you can do whatever you want. Both can be daily, one can be something else. Listing updates are when you've shared a listing with them and it either goes into pending, sells, it could expire, it could be withdrawn. Those are listing updates. Collection activity is when I go and leave a comment on something, for example. So I would probably say when I leave a comment on something, maybe can you update them immediately that I did that? And then a listing update, maybe that's not quite as important, about like what these status updates are happening. Maybe you leave that on daily, whatever you think is best. And for me, I have it update me immediately. I want to know in real time what's going on. Any questions so far? Or we're good?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I like this way that you just did it because it automatically updates. Is there a way to get automatic updates for a collection that you've already created through Workspace?
No,
Okay, so I need to start from scratch.
at least I don't think so. When I finish this, I'll go back and double check for you. But I don't think so. I know it wasn't at a certain point. Maybe they updated that, but I don't think they did. I'll double check for you after.
I
Okay.
also have a question.
Yeah.
Um, do you need to add it to the business tracker? Like, is that a requirement?
Yes.
Because I have like so many people in business tracker that like are looking, but like not at, you know what I mean? It's just
Mhm.
consistent and just very overwhelming on business tracker. So I was just wondering if there was a way around that, but I guess there isn't.
No, so anything that has this asterisk here, you have to. The only thing I would say to you is, and this might be more information than other people need on this specific training. Be cautious of who you're setting these collections up for with people, because the more you have, the more you have to manage. So I really make it a point that by the time that someone is actually getting set up in a collection, I'm not working for free for people. I mean, we are, but you know, I want to at least put my eggs in a more secure basket. So before I commit to really making sure that this is a part of my day and I'm spending 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is, updating this for my clients, they're pretty committed to me. So in my business tracker, I would just say maybe go through those people and be cautious and think twice before you set up a collection for somebody. Only because if you're doing the collections the right way, which the right way, you guys can do whatever you want, but you came to this training here, in my opinion. So if you're doing the collections the way that I do them, you're taking a pretty good amount of time to make sure that these are quite curated for people. So if you have 100 collections going on, it's going to be really hard to deliver that experience for every single one of those people. Therefore, I don't feel they would be as successful as actually getting these people to the closing table. If you have, you know, such a large quantity of them. So that would just be like my 2 cents in there is think about how you're setting up these collections and if every single one of them is necessary. All right, so I'm going to go through here and create collection. Now, because I had it reviewed and handpicked, I have this other tab here called unshared. So this and trash will not be visible to the client. The only thing that will be visible to the client is the shared column. So until this is somewhere if this is like your first time, make sure you don't get tricked into thinking, oh no, it's all set, it's ready for the client. If you added me into this right now, I wouldn't be able to see anything. So you need to then go through, and this is a smaller, I had pretty specific criteria in here. Most of the time, you're probably going to have like 40 or 50 you have to go sift through. Go through the ones, add the ones that you want to add. Great, let's just say I added 4 of these. Now this is everything that your client can see. I usually make it a point, and this is like why when I say like I go into these every single day, I always, not always, I really, really, really try my best to keep this unshared clean at the end of every day, or at a minimum every other day. Only because it's hard if I'm going in and checking this to remember and like where I picked off, like, did I already look through this? Did I already spend time thinking if this was a right match for them or not? So this way it reminds myself when I jump back in here, I know, that anything that's populating in here is new, that I haven't spent time looking at it. Once you're in shared, this is where you can go in and leave your comments, do, whatever you want to do, just like you would in a normal collection, even if you made it from Workspace. So from here, I would just go in, and I'm not going to leave them right now because it's going to take up too much time for us, but I always say, try and leave the comments of things that our buyers can't find online. So if you have any kind of intel as to what something's in contract for, and then you're like, okay, well, the one down the street went for 1.1 and this one's listed for 950. That would be like a great data point to be able to pop in there. I want to see if I can actually, I am going to take a second and do this because I just set this person up in a collection yesterday. And it'll be a good example. So like you guys will see here, like I haven't checked this since yesterday and only one new thing has come in. So it's a lot easier for me to just say trash because it didn't work for her. I already knew that. And now I know that, great, I'll go back and check tomorrow. So if you go in and see here, I had added like 16 of these and I left comments on each one. So here I said, this house already went to highest and best offers and will likely sell for around 1.1. This is a beautiful section of Katona Lewisboro. It is off Mount Holly Road, which is very well known in the area. There are hiking trails here and the lot sizes are typically 2+ acres. Increase Miller Elementary, because that can get confusing for people. Adding in so you can have an idea of what the budget can get you here. So again, like, and you can even see like through my conversations of someone so early, I'm setting the expectation that even though this house was listed at 989, it's probably going to go for 1.1. So the earlier you can have these conversations with people, the sooner they can track the data, the easier those conversations are going to be when you actually find the house. And then I did the same thing for all of these. So this is in the Vista section of Lewisboro, very close to Connecticut border. So people often go to New Canaan for shopping, trains, parkways, etc. This is the most affordable section of Lewisboro, and you will typically get more land and for much less money than in other sections of town. That is not something that's available, that's easy information or available to somebody online. So these are the kind of comments I'm leaving people. I'm not saying this is a 3-bed, 2-bath home and it's 1,823 square feet on 1 acre. They can see that. They got that. We're good. So I really like to leave comments that are actually going to be really mindful and offer up as much value as possible to people. All right, let me head back into this. This is pretty much it. But then once this is all done, all you have to do now is just invite your client into the collection. So I'm going to type in Corinne. You can write a little message here if you want to. Again, because of when I set the collection up in my process, I've already set the expectation that I'm going to be sending this collection. So there's not much of a message that's necessary here because I'm probably doing it like 2 hours or the night of the call that we just had. So they already know to expect this. Then you're just going to press invite. Corinne happens to be a Compass agent, so she automatically went in. But an email will get sent to them and then they'll be able to accept the invitation from there. And now they're in the collection. Like all these autopilots, I keep thinking I have a message and I'm like, not used to seeing these. We didn't have these last year. All right.
I have
Yeah.
a question. I don't know
Sure.
if you said anything. I just had to get off the phone for a second. When I send collections to my client and then they like yay or nay them on the app, I think, or on their end, it says like does not like. So does that on their end, does it go to garbage or trash?
Yes, I believe on the consumer, they have a way of trashing it, but it doesn't trash it for you. So
Yeah,
it'll
so
just
then
give you
I
that
will
red
then,
thumbs down.
right, so then I could trash it on my end and it will
Yes.
just, do you
And then it'll
recommend
move to
doing
your
that?
trash. Yeah.
you recommend once they trash it, retrash it? Is that what you normally recommend?
I think it depends on the client. Sometimes I've had people be like, I was just saying I didn't like it. You didn't need to remove it. I was watching it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I kind of let people do what
Okay.
they want in there. If I have like, it all depends on like the personality of somebody.
So it doesn't remove, if they don't like it, it doesn't remove from their box.
I
That's
don't
what I
think
was
so.
always wondering.
I
Okay.
don't think so. Or if it does, it moves to a trash that they can still access.
But then if I trash it, they can't access it.
Then it removes it, yeah. from the-
Gotcha. That's what I've always wondered. And I was like,
Yeah.
because someone once made a comment to me like that too. And I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm just trying to keep it clean for everybody in here.
Yeah. And
Shit,
then, yeah. And then my next question is, like, once the client sells or like buys something, do you keep the collection or do you get rid of it? And can you get it back if you delete the collection?
You cannot get it back if you delete the collection. Once it's deleted, it's deleted. And I think it says something like that in here.
Okay.
Because I'm going to delete this collection. Otherwise, my mother will kill me because I set her up in all these things on the test. So now it's out there and I can't get it back. I, again, think it depends on the client. I think it's great practice. The only thing I would say to keep them in the collection after it sells, ask them. Say, would you like me to keep that collection going? What I can do is I can narrow in the radius to maybe having it be only like your specific elementary school or a 2-mile radius from your house. And I can switch that to weekly updates. So maybe then they're not getting notified as much. But it can still be a great way for you to kind of have somewhat of a drip campaign to keep in touch with them.
Hey,
Cool.
Thank you.
Did I hear someone?
yeah, me.
Yeah, hi.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think when you erase a collection, when you delete it, it stays active as a saved search because that's how you initially created it, correct?
Yes and no. I've had some that have stayed and some that have not. So I wouldn't erase anything that you might want to get back. I'd probably just keep it open.
Right. Well, maybe I think I've only done it from the app. So maybe when you do it from the app, it stays up.
Maybe.
I don't know if maybe from the desktop.
Maybe. It's
Yeah.
one of those things that's not a one size fits all with
Okay.
Compass, so I don't like to risk anything
Right.
of thinking like, oh, I'm gonna save my searches there or whatnot.
Gotcha. And I've always created them from, generating a search, basically saving a search and then selecting, collection for client.
Mhm.
When you do it from Workspace, what's the difference? Because I've never, done it that way. How does it function?
So when you do it from Workspace, it's basically like you can pick houses from today, but then it's not gonna update on its own. Like there's no feed within it. So if a new listing populates based off the criteria, nothing's gonna come up.
Right.
So
So
it's just
basically
as
it's
good
just
as
like a
today.
folder of properties. That's it.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
if you've ever made a public collection and you
Right.
make it for today, you're like, this looks great today. And then tomorrow it changes and you're like, okay, here we go again. That's
Right.
basically what it is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys. And any questions, as always, just shoot me an email. And I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you.